A to Z Mysteries, Book Number 14, The Ninth Nugget, by Ron Roy. Chapter 3. No one talked after Thumbs left. One by one they stood, yawned, and left the circle. "Remember, buttermilk pancakes for breakfast," Lulu called as she walked toward the main house. The kids stayed behind to help Judd douse the fire with pond water. "Was there really a bear?" Josh asked Judd. "He was kidding, wasn't he?" "I was away at college, so I don't know for sure," Judd said. "But I've never known Thumbs to be a kidder." "It could be a true story," Ruth Rose said. "I read a book about grizzly bears once. The mother bears protect their young until they're all grown up." Dink slung his arm around Josh's shoulders. "Don't worry, even a hungry bear wouldn't want you. You're too skinny." "Want me to walk you kids back to your cabin?" Judd asked. "Nope," Josh said. "I'm not afraid of any old bear. Besides, I bet Thumbs was fooling us. How did he really lose his thumb, Judd?" Judd laughed. "You'll have to ask him," he said. "Sleep tight and don't let the critters bite." Dink, Josh, and Ruth Rose walked toward the three cabins. The stars cast a soft glow over the stones that lined the path. Light came from Fiona's and Ed's cabins, but the cabin in the middle was pitch black. "I thought I left a light on," Ruth Rose said. "I thought you did too," Dink told her. "I know I did," Ruth Rose said. Then she jumped on Josh's back and screamed, "The grizzly bear's in our cabin!" "Very funny, Ruth Rosebush," Josh said. "See if I protect you when the bear really comes." When they were all in their beds, Dink turned out the light next to his bunk. He rolled onto his side and gazed out the window. Fireflies flickered everywhere. Frogs and crickets made a sweet racket from the pond. "Good night, you guys," Ruth Rose said from the other side of the room. "Good night, Ruth Rose. Good night, Grizzly Bear," Dink said. "I'm not speaking to either one of you," Josh said from the top bunk. Dink smiled in his bunk. Josh is so easy to scare, he thought as he drifted off to sleep. Suddenly, Dink was wide awake. He thought he'd heard something thump outside the cabin. He sat up and peered through the window over Ruth Rose's bed. She was a sleeping lump under her blankets. Dink didn't know what time it was, but he didn't think he'd been sleeping for long. Josh was snoring. "Maybe a pine cone fell on the porch," Dink said to himself. "Yeah, pine cones can make big thumps when they fall from tall trees." Dink lay back down and closed his eyes. He tried to force himself back to sleep. Then he heard more noises. Something heavy was moving around on the porch, and it was no pine cone. Suddenly, a dark shape stepped in front of the window. Dink shuddered and fell back on his pillow. Whatever was out there was large enough to shut out the starlight. Dink heard a scraping noise, and then the shape moved away. Starlight once more flowed through the window. Dink pulled his covers up under his chin. He could feel his heart thumping in his chest. "Calm down," he told himself. It couldn't be that lonely mother grizzly bear, could it? Wishing he hadn't teased Josh about the bear, Dink finally went to sleep. The next morning, the breakfast bell woke the kids. Josh leaped off the top bunk, nearly landing on Dink. Ruth Rose dashed into the bathroom while the boys were getting dressed. 3 minutes later, they were on the path to the main house. Guys," Dink said, "I know you're not gonna believe me, but something was on our porch last night." "What kind of something?" Ruth Rose asked. "Did it have fur and big claws?" "Here we go again," Josh muttered. "Honest, something was out there," Dink continued. I heard these thumps, then something blocked your window, Ruth Rose. There was a scratching noise, too. Josh laughed. You guys are so lame. It was probably a raccoon. If you're right, we'd better call the Guinness Book of World Records, Dink said. Whatever stepped in front of that window was about 6 feet tall. I don't care if Frankenstein was peeking in our window, Josh said, racing toward the main house. I need pancakes. The kids hurried into the dining room. Everyone was already seated. Good morning, Ma Wheat said as she poured juice. Hope you slept well and woke up hungry. Platters of scrambled eggs, sausages, and pancakes filled the middle of the table. Everyone dug in. When most of the food was gone, Dink told everyone about the noises and the shape on their cabin porch. Strange noises? Pa said. I didn't hear anything. How about you, Judd? Nothing could have woke me up, Pa, Judd said. You hear anything, Ma? Ma shook her head. You hear any strange noises, Thumbs? Thumbs grinned and shook his head. Nope, he said. But I thought I smelt bear when I walked over here this morning. Chapter 4. Everyone had a good laugh. Everyone except Josh. Then Pa asked Ed Getz to do a magic trick. Ed stood up and showed his audience that his hands were empty. Next, he draped his napkin over one hand and mumbled a few magic words. When he yanked the napkin away, an egg was sitting in his hand. Everybody clapped, and then Thumbs stood up. Fine breakfast, Lulu, he said. Those of you who want to, we're gonna pan for gold. 20 minutes later, all 7 guests hiked with Thumbs and Judd along a gravel path on the other side of the pond. A stream followed the path, splashing and gurgling over rocks. Before leaving the main house, Judd had given everyone a wide, flat pan. This is it, Thumbs said a few minutes later, stopping at a sandy bank on the stream. I don't see any gold, Josh observed, peering into the water. Judd laughed. You won't see it, he said. He pointed farther upstream toward the mountains. There's gold in those hills, he explained. Every time it storms, Nuggets get washed downstream. Show 'em how to find gold, Thumbs. Thumbs squatted and dipped his pan into the water. Don't step in the stream or you'll disturb the mud, he said. With a flick of his wrist, he brought up a pan full of water and gravel. Gold is heavier than the gravel, Thumbs went on, so it'll settle on the bottom of my pan. Thumbs shook his pan gently back and forth, swishing the gravel and water. Then he tipped the pan and let the water and gravel slide over the edge. Looky here, Thumbs said, holding his pan up. In the bottom lay a few dull pebbles, but among the pebbles was a shiny golden nugget the size of a pea. Is that gold? Dink asked. Sure it is, Thumbs said. He picked out the nugget and let everyone have a look at it. How much is it worth? Josh asked. Thumbs dropped the nugget into his shirt pocket. This size? Not much. He pointed his chin toward the distant hills. To find the real gold, you'd have to go up there. Can we try panning now? Ruth Rose asked. Thumbs backed away from the stream. Pick yourself a spot and remember, don't get in the water. The 7 guests knelt along the stream. Judd joined the kids and dipped his pan into the water. I've been doing this since I was a kid, he said. One year a guest found a nugget the size of a golf ball. I heard he sold it and bought himself a new Jeep. Cool, Josh said. I need a Jeep. He knelt in the sand and dipped his pan into the water. Everyone began dipping. For a while, all you could hear was the sound of gravel swishing against metal. Dink soon got the hang of it. He liked the feel of the sun on his back as he dipped his pan over and over. Suddenly, Fiona Nippet let out a yell. "I found one," she said. Grinning, she held up a golden nugget a bit larger than the one Thumbs had found. "Great," Judd said. "Now let's see if everyone else can find one." Over the next half hour, others began to shout and hold up small nuggets. Even Judd. 8 nuggets were found. Finally, only Josh hadn't brought up any gold from the stream. "Gotta pack up soon," Thumbs announced. "Lulu's a bear if we're late for her meals." "I'm gonna try a different place," Josh announced. "There are no more nuggets here." "Where are you going?" Ruth Rose asked. Josh pointed his pen upstream. "Up there," he said, "where the real gold is." Dink watched Josh pick his way along the stream, champing over rocks and branches. "I hope he finds one," Ruth Rose said. "Otherwise he'll be grumpy all week." Dink held his nugget up to the sun. It was the size of an M&M. "Do you suppose I can get enough money for this to buy a bike?" he asked. Suddenly they heard Josh yelling, then a big splash. They looked upstream and saw Josh sitting in the water. Dink and Ruth Rose ran to help, but Judd reached him first. "Are you okay?" Judd asked, reaching for Josh's hand. Josh grabbed Judd's hand and stumbled out of the stream. He was soaked from the waist down, but grinning. "Look what I found," Josh said, sticking out his other hand. Dink's eyes bugged out. Josh was holding a chunk of gold the size of a potato.